A magnitude 7.7 just struck off Japan's coast. 175,000 people are evacuating right now. Japan issued a rare megaquake warning. This is the same fault that triggered Fukushima. Here's what happened, and what scientists fear comes next. The quake hit at 4:53 in the afternoon on Monday, April 20th. Coastal communities from Hokkaido down to Fukushima Prefecture went into emergency mode in minutes. In Kamaushi and Otsuchi, two towns nearly erased from the map in 2011, sirens blared again. Same sirens. Same coastline. Same fault. The Japan Meteorological Agency issued a 3-meter tsunami warning for Iwate, Aomori, and parts of Hokkaido. That's a 10-foot wall of water aimed directly at the shore. Trains across northeast Japan halted. The Tohoku Shinkansen, the bullet line connecting Tokyo to the northern cities, shut down completely. The Aomori Hokodate ferry was cancelled. A tsunami generated on this fault can cross the entire Pacific Ocean in under 10 hours. Seattle and San Francisco have received alerts from this exact fault system before. And Japan's own scientists are now warning this earthquake may not be the main event. At 4:53 p.m., the seafloor off Iwate Prefecture moved. The epicenter sits directly on the Japan Trench. This is where the Pacific Plate grinds beneath the North American Plate. JMA data puts the convergence rate at nearly 9 centimeters per year. That sounds small. It is not small. At that rate, stress builds across decades, then centuries, then releases in seconds. On Monday, some of that stress gave way. The Japan Meteorological Agency initially measured this at magnitude 7.5. Hours later, they revised to 7.7. The USGS measured 7.4. Different agencies use different measurement methods. The variation is normal. But every version of that number means the same thing. Major earthquake. Now, here's what made this especially dangerous. The JMA confirmed the quake struck at a depth of just 10 kilometers. That is shallow. Shallow earthquakes push their energy into the surface far more violently than deep ones. Buildings swayed in Tokyo, hundreds of kilometers south of the epicenter. A CNN production crew in the capital reported feeling the shaking for 7 full minutes. The tsunami warning fired within minutes of the quake. Emergency alerts hit phones across 7 prefectures at once. Sirens echoed off the mountains in Ofunato. In Kamaishi, shop workers dropped everything and ran uphill before the warnings finished broadcasting. In the port town of Miyako, people who had lived through 2011 didn't wait for confirmation. They already knew the sound. The first waves arrived within the hour. JMA data confirmed a tsunami of 80 centimeters at Kuji Port in Iwate. At Miyako Port, 40 centimeters. Smaller surges rolled into Sendai and along remote Hokkaido's Pacific coast. The warning was downgraded and lifted entirely. No deaths were reported. For people were injured, all while evacuating, not from the water itself. At least 26 buildings sustained damage in Aomori Prefecture. Around 200 homes lost power in Hirozumi, Iwate. For residents of this coastline, those numbers feel almost impossible to accept. Otsuchi lost 10% of its entire population 15 years ago. On Monday, the same survivors ran the same routes they memorized from grief. But here's what the JMA press conference contained and what most coverage buried. GMO officials stated directly that the likelihood of a new huge earthquake occurring is now higher than normal.
Ow.
They issued a subsequent earthquake advisory running through April 27th. The Cabinet Office confirmed it. The probability of a magnitude 8 or greater striking in the next week has jumped tenfold above baseline, from 0.1% to 1%. That sounds manageable. On a fault that already produced a magnitude 9 tenfold is not a footnote. It is a flare. 175,957 people. That is the official evacuation figure confirmed by JMA and NHK. 82,811 households, across 13 cities, 21 towns, and 6 villages. Hokkaido, Aomori, Iwate, Miyagi, Fukushima. In Kamashi, which rebuilt its entire harbor district after 2011, residents grabbed emergency bags and moved again. In Otsuchi, families who still have relatives buried from 15 years ago left without a second look. In Sendai, the largest city in northeastern Japan, train stations were gridlocked, as Shinkansen service halted and thousands were stranded. Misawa Air Base sits in Aomori Prefecture, directly inside the warning zone. It is one of the most significant U.S. military installations in the Pacific. Thousands of American service members and their families were inside the advisory area Monday afternoon. The Megaquake advisory now covers 182 towns and cities, from Chiba Prefecture east of Tokyo all the way to the northern edge of Hokkaido. That is a massive stretch of Pacific coastline. All of it on watch through April 27th. But here's the detail that hits hardest. The three towns with the greatest trauma, Kamiushi, Otsuchi, Ofunado, sit at the center of the warning zone. For those communities, a Megaquake advisory is not an abstraction. It is a memory with a date attached. Here's why this specific fault terrifies seismologists. The Japan Trench is where the Pacific Plate dives beneath the Okhotska microplate. The plates do not slide smoothly. They lock against each other. Stress accumulates across years, across decades, across generations. And then, sometimes with no further warning at all, a locked section ruptures entirely. That is exactly what happened on March 11, 2011. The Tohoku earthquake measured magnitude 9.0. It was the most powerful earthquake in Japanese recorded history. The fourth most powerful ever measured anywhere on Earth. The rupture zone tore along nearly 500 kilometers of this same plate boundary. The resulting tsunami killed more than 18,500 people. Nearly 500,000 people were displaced. The waves knocked out the cooling systems at Fukushima Daiichi. 3 reactors melted down, the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. Monday's earthquake happened on the same fault system. JMA data places the rupture north of the 2011 main slip zone, in an area adjacent to where that catastrophic break occurred. Some seismologists believe the 2011 rupture transferred stress onto the northern sections of the Japan Trench. That stress has been building for 15 years. Monday may have released some of it. Or, and this is what no scientist can rule out, Monday may have added more. Japan's current advisory covers 2 separate undersea fault systems simultaneously. The Japan Trench and the Tsushima Trench further north. Both are capable of generating magnitude 8 or greater events. And this is not the first recent alarm. In August 2024, a magnitude 7.1 quake near Japan's southern Nankai Trough triggered the very first megaquake advisory in the country's history. In December 2025, a magnitude 7.5 off this same northeastern coast triggered another. That time, no larger earthquake followed. 3 advisories in under 2 years. Professor Ioannis Karmpidakis, a coastal engineering expert at Imperial College London, noted this plainly. Japan accounts for roughly 20% of all earthquakes of magnitude 6.0 or greater on Earth. The fault is not the surprise. The frequency of warnings is. Watch what happens next. The JMA's subsequent earthquake advisory is active through April 27th. 3 things to track in the coming 72 hours. First, aftershock migration. The USGS and JMA confirmed multiple aftershocks in the hours following the main event. If those aftershocks begin tracking north or south along the fault toward unruptured sections, researchers will respond immediately. Second, the nuclear sites. Tokyo Electric Power Company confirmed no abnormalities at Fukushima Daiichi and Fukushima Daini, though workers were evacuated as a precaution. Tohoku Electric Power reported normal conditions at the Onagawa and Higashidori plants as well. Radioactive material levels remained within normal ranges. But all 4 facilities stay under active monitoring through the end of the advisory window. A significantly stronger earthquake would change that calculation instantly. Third, and this is the scenario researchers are watching most closely, the Nankai Trough. This separate fault system runs roughly 500 miles along Japan's southern Pacific coast. It has been under its own elevated advisory since 2024. Some researchers believe a major Japan Trench rupture could influence stress loading on the Nankai system. A connection is not confirmed, and seismologists disagree on the degree of interaction. But Japanese officials are now watching both fault systems simultaneously. Now, worst case and best case. If the Japan Trench generates a magnitude 8 or greater during this advisory window, as the 1% probability suggests is possible, the U.S. Pacific Tsunami Warning Center would immediately issue alerts for Hawaii, Alaska, and the U.S. West Coast. Tsunami energy from a Japan trench megaquake can reach the Hawaiian Islands in under 9 hours. Portland, Seattle, and San Francisco would receive warnings. In 2011, waves from this very fault system reached the U.S. West Coast within hours of the main event. Best case, April 27th arrives quietly, as December 2025 did. The 7.7 was the main event. Aftershocks diminish. Evacuees return home. Japan logs another close call on a fault that produces more close calls than anywhere else on Earth. The JMA's own statement supports this as the more probable outcome. Most large earthquakes are not foreshocks, so most megaquake advisories expire without a megaquake. But most is not all. 3 things to remember. A magnitude 7.7 struck the Japan trench on April 4th, 20th, the same fault system that ruptured in 2011 and triggered the Fukushima disaster. 175,957 people were officially evacuated across 5 prefectures. Confirmed by the Japan Meteorological Agency and NHK, Japan is now under a rare megaquake advisory through April 27th, with a 10-fold increase in the odds of a magnitude 8 or greater. If you want to stay ahead of what's happening to this planet right now, subscribe. I post every time something major moves. Coming next, the Nankai Trough, Japan's other loaded fault system. Scientists say an event there could exceed 2011 in scale. That video is on the screen right now, and after what you just watched, you need to know what is building there. Stay safe.